Hello there and welcome to my latest podcast. The 26th of May 2021 will go down as a watershed day in UK politics. The day when one of the children in the political sweetie shop spilled the beans. The revelations of Dominic Cummings revealed a well-scripted and rehearsed narrative that for many offered no surprises. It comes on the heels of companies on their knees, people afraid for their employment, and consumers committing their cash to the dream of a holiday when, let's face it, politicians and newspapers are guilty of spinning the yarn just to make the country feel good to hide their political ambition and incompetence. This parliamentary spectacle had MPs sitting almost open-jawed at the minute-by-minute offering, revealing the worst dysfunctional political family ever to occupy 10 Downing Street and the levers of power. How, I wondered, did the families of 150,000 COVID victims feel about this casual conversation, which presented a callous disregard for their loved ones, who were citizens of the UK? As the day went on, it simply got worse, and in relation to travel, it became clear that there was no plan for the borders before April 2020, and the Prime Minister simply didn't want a border policy to deal with coronavirus after April 2020. But as the MPs were held in rapt attention, the detail and effective probing that was required simply didn't materialise. As I was watching the broadcast, I waited eagerly for the killer questions. Why did the government allow packed flights to return from the Far East in January, February and March 2020? Why didn't they ban the flights? Why did the government abandon hotel quarantining for returning holidaymakers and visitors? The logic for these points is that as cruise ships bottleneck ports in the Far East, being prevented from offloading their passengers from ships that contained the virus, surely there was a political recognition of air movements and human bioeffluency that would also be repeated on board aircraft. Another question that should have been asked was the government lobbied by the airline industry about flights and the effectiveness of their air conditioning systems in being able to keep passengers safe from the coronavirus? Was the science of an enclosed pressurised chamber even examined or discussed? Whilst the airline industry would not want their role examined in spreading the virus globally, it is now likely that those who received precious votes from their constituents were simply not up to the task of even thinking in the alternative, such as the power of the shackles of agenda and dogma. We can all relate to stories from our workplaces where someone has been brought in or promoted for a particular job or role, but amongst our colleagues we lament that the individual in question has been promoted above their abilities. The Dominic Cummings show revealed no less. It is appalling to think that in the absence of leadership, at all levels, so many people died unnecessarily. But when you think about it, from potholes in the road, to the ingredients in our food, to the cleanliness of our air and water, and the promises of a glorious future, we are never going to see real progress or action in these areas because the current political set that could make the difference are simply incapable of doing so. For many months I've been highlighting a real fear for the future of consumer rights and the enthusiasm for deregulation. With that in mind, and as we move forward from COVID to Brexit, politicians will simply not glance sideways at the wider implications and how their deregulatory decisions will affect ordinary people and businesses. They simply don't matter. But as Mr. Cummings spoke, I wondered how quickly the cheerleaders in the media would wait before they spinned for their boy Johnson. I didn't have to wait long. Notable broadcasters were out of the traps, using charts and comment to gently move their followers toward a line of thinking. The great game had begun. In the midst of his commentary, the media were never going to be far from the room, fearful of exposure, or clutching at their influence and the money-making potential from their exclusive demographic. On the same day that DC was speaking, I received a call from a national newspaper seeking a comment about travel to France. But the comments I provided didn't land on the page, because it called into question the government and made for an uncomfortable contribution to their own agenda about Johnny Foreigner and their crocodile tears for an industry. Plus ça change since 2016. It is a miserable situation, made more miserable by the fact that the UK government has consistently lied, not just to secure its comfortable majority, but also to our neighbours. They say we get the government we deserve, or that the politicians we have are truly representative of the qualities we all bear. I happen to think that they are wrong. How could we be so corrupt, disruptive, dysfunctional, or just plain nasty? That's not my experience of the country I grew up in, where decency and pragmatism was always evident. Or are we all mirror images of Dominic or Boris or Matt? If this is what we have become, then the society we have all taken for granted for so long will indeed be changed, and not for the better. Until the next time, take care.
Da da dum da da dum da 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 dum da da dum da da dum da da